Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host, Advocate Tudo Hoyane. This morning, I would like to engage you in something which is called in criminal trials, which is called a trial within a trial. We have seen a trial within a trial in the Senzo Meyiwa matter take up most of the time. This case has taken such a long time because we had this trial within a trial. Now, what is a trial within a trial? And let me go back a little bit and say this. When a crime has been committed, police will put in place an investigation. An investigation team will be assembled to undertake the investigation. That investigation can lead anywhere. But the most important thing is it must identify the suspects involved in the crime that has been committed. That is standard police procedure. In other words, the police on themselves, with their own resources, have to gather evidence that will actually, implicate suspects in the commission of the crime that they're investigating. Without the involvement of the suspect in his or her own incrimination. In other words, when an investigation is undertaken to take it further, the police don't have to rely on the suspect to implicate or incriminate himself or herself in the commission of the crime that they're investigating. That they don't go out to do that. Now, what happens in most cases is the police will then gather evidence. In the Senzo Meyiwa, we have seen this. Gininda and his team have been trying to gather evidence. And the evidence that they also gathered relies on what are known as confessions. I have, in earlier episodes of the Daily Fix, explained what a confession is. But just for the uninitiated, let me put it this way. A confession is a statement made by the person implicated in a crime that implicates him or her in the commission of that crime. The procedure there is that it must be freely and voluntarily made before a magistrate, who then records that confession in the words of the person making the confession. And the magistrate must also ensure that the person is doing so freely and voluntarily. Right? If a confession, then that concludes a confession. That is what a confession is. This confession that has been made will then be part of the police investigation. It will be filed in the docket. The prosecution then has the option, right, of bringing up this confession as part of its evidence to show that the person who made the confession is the culprit behind the crime. This is part of the package that they will put before the court. Now, I've said the standard procedure is to undertake an investigation without involving the suspect in the actual investigation. How does it come about that a confession is then extracted or acquired? And in most cases, it is extracted from a suspect, such that the suspect now turns around and says, yes, I am the one who killed Senzo Meyiwa. I was with so and so and so and so and so and so. In more often than not, police are not supposed to use force on suspects, or they are not expected to use force on suspects. But more often than not, policemen will always abuse suspects. They will slap them, they will insult them, you know. They never treat them in the manner that the Constitution says they must be treated. In other words, when they pick up a suspect, police, display an attitude that this suspect is already guilty. This is the person who has killed Senzo Meyiwa. And they don't treat him with kid gloves. They really abuse. It is a well-known fact. That is why there are there are thousands of cases of, police assaults and abuse, such that the Minister of Police annually has to fork out millions and millions of rands to pay out these claims. So the fact that police abuse people is something that is documented. It is there. The proof is the cases of police assaults that attract the attention of the courts in South Africa every year. And there are thousands of them. And as I speak, there are thousands pending before the courts. Now, let us look at the situation of Ntanzi, accused number 2. Ntanzi is supposed to be the first person to have been arrested in the Senzo Meyiwa trial. In colloquial language, let us say Ntanzi is supposed to be the person who spilled the beans, such that all the others then ended up getting arrested. But let us look at the circumstances surrounding Ntanzi's arrest. Were the police compliant with constitutional requirements relating to how they should treat, suspects and so on? Because the police, upon the arrest of a suspect, are supposed to read out what are known as the McNaughton rules. These rules simply lay out that the police have to advise the suspect that you have the right to remain silent, you have the right to a lawyer, right? And anything that you say might be used in evidence against you. So that gives the suspect an option not to say anything if the suspect so wishes. Let's get back to Ntanzi. Ntanzi says when he was arrested, among other things, I think it was policeman Mohani slapped him when Ntanzi demanded that he should also produce his ID for him to ascertain that he's actually a policeman. That is what Ntanzi says. And you don't have to disbelieve Ntanzi. Now, at a later stage, it is alleged that the same Ntanzi, made a confession before a magistrate. Ntanzi has vehemently refused that he ever made a confession to a magistrate. Now, the courts have accepted these confessions. But how should the courts exercise their discretion either to accept a confession or not to accept a confession? If a person, if a piece of paper called a confession makes it into court, and you are a suspect, and it is alleged that you freely and voluntarily made this statement, why then should you spiritedly in court deny ever having made the statement? Chances are you probably never made that statement. Or most probably you made that statement under duress. Some pressure was being applied on you. Now, Ntanzi says he was slapped, right? Just at the point when he was getting arrested. It is also common cause, or it is a well-known fact, that upon his arrest, Ntanzi was never read his constitutional rights, therefore making the arrest itself unlawful. In other words, Ntanzi should never even made it to where he is now. Prima facie, or on the face of it, his arrest was unlawful. These are the contradictions that we are seeing in the Senzo Meyiwa trial. In spite of the fact that, there are those inconsistencies about that deceased Makeleni, that deceased witness, saying he saw a gold tooth in Tanzi's mouth in the middle of the night or when it was very dark. And these people were supposedly far away from him. How could you spot a gold tooth in a person's mouth? Because that is shaky evidence. Because the evidence from that angle is shaky, the prosecution now is trying to buttress or close that gap by ensuring that they bring up these confessions in the event that their investigation is weak and cannot sustain the charges that these people are facing. They then rely on these confessions to say, oh well, even if our evidence is weak in one or two respects, but these people actually confessed. They owned up to the crimes. I think the court should have leaned in favor of the accused persons, because on the face of it, balancing the two, who do you believe? The police and the evidence that these people made these statements freely and voluntarily? Or do you believe the suspects? Clearly, the inconsistencies that have come up in the Senzo Meyiwa trial indicate that, the balance of convenience would favor the accused. That is where it is. But as it is, the court has then accepted those confessions. And there's still a question mark. And this matter can still be taken up on appeal, whether, the court was correct in accepting those confession statements to have been made freely and voluntarily. I don't think so. And the state or the police and the prosecution were desperate to get a conviction. That is what they resort to. In the event that, their investigation leads them nowhere, they end up, getting to suspects, actually beating them up into making confessions, such that the poor suspect, when he gets to the magistrate, admits everything. Because after all, the police, are breathing down his neck. The conditions are such that they take him there and tell him that, you are going to make a confession there, in the harsh and brutal language that they use. And when the poor person gets there, probably just incriminates himself. But I'm saying the circumstances under which these so-called confessions were made are still very questionable. Having said that, let me thank you for the views that I'm seeing and the subscriptions. We are nearly at 2K subscribers. Let us go for 2K subscribers and beyond. We will pursue this initiative. The Senzo Meyiwa trial is going to take up a lot of my time. There are just too many issues here. I thought I would go into other issues, but your interest through the views that I'm seeing and the subscriptions just point in the direction that I should take this matter further and further. We should go this journey with you. And I need for your support on this journey. Thank you very much for watching and have a nice day.